Honest J. Nowak. Coming at you live. Alright. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Honest J. Nowak Graphix. And today's pick on Graphix is probably going to be a bit different than most, but well, if you're already familiar with the Alien series and the Predator series, then well, you'd probably know that both of them eventually came together in the 2000s. But in 2020, there came along Predator Hunting Grounds. It's basically the very belated thing out there to cash in on the success of the Predator series entirely by creating a PS4 game. And this one is, of course, multiplayer based, primarily. So it includes no story, no extras, and as far as we know, no extra DLC packs and otherwise. That would typically be noted with some releases out there by today's standards. Lots of Call of Duty DLCs, add-ons, packs, and other such stuff that you can buy online on the PlayStation Store. They're available all over the place. But yet I did get the chance to play Predator Hunting Grounds when it was released in summer 2020. And let me just tell you, first off, that when discussing 2020 titles, there are a ton to pick from. And considering how 2020 was barely anything that many people had realized, it was certainly a different year than many people might have suggested or thought of. But the way I see it, it's still a good year. But let's just say that this game is a bit out of the ordinary, and therefore it probably does fall a bit underneath many other titles that I have played and talked about before at any point in time. Predator Hunting Grounds, like I said, does not have any story or any kind of extras. It's primarily multiplayer based, where you can control either the soldiers and the fire team forces, such as in the first film itself, the first Predator, where Arnold Schwarzenegger leads a large group of soldiers of all sorts of things. And this game does happen to pretty much capitalize on that sort of thing, but if there were actually a story involved, then maybe it could have been even more like what the first film had depicted, and essentially given us a bit more of a reboot sort of feel. But too bad that the series itself has been rebooted multiple times already in the course of different films. It started off with Predator 1 and 2 in 1987 and 1990, and then way after that, of course, there were a lot of the Dark Horse comics between the Alien, then the Predator, and then eventually they fight together. And who would have thought eventually it would be turned into an actual movie with Aliens vs. Predator from 2004. And then with a sequel, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem in 2007. Both of which have been pretty bad by any means. A lot of people consider them bad. But as a seeker, I myself am more than willing to accept that somehow they failed, but deep down, they probably have some sense of being good. It would probably take a lot of time to analyze this stuff. Many people might have already done so, but I myself would much rather just not have their kind of advice. But when discussing Predator-based games, or any of these kind of games relating to the Aliens or Predators, then we've had a lot of them, especially since the 80s, when both franchises were pretty big. But when you really get down to it though, Predator Hunting Grounds does not necessarily have all the kinds of regulations and all of the kind of standards that probably would make a certain PS4 game a good title to play for hours at a time, or even days at a time, if you really are that hardcore. But you can play different kinds of modes, and you can play as the Marines or the Predator. And with each game mode, you basically have different sort of perspectives taking place. It's kind of like with Dead by Daylight, where you either have a third-person perspective with the Marines, or with the Predator, you basically have yourself a first-person perspective taking place. Except here, it's basically a role reversal, unlike in Dead by Daylight, where The side that's good, supposedly, has a first-person perspective, and it's the Predator who has the third-person perspective. So, simply put, it's like polar opposites in a way. That's probably what some trial and error probably would have been beneficial for, but again, I'm not really seeing a lot on this game. Being that I was able to play it for a few hours at a time probably wasn't also very special, but yet I feel like that's just it, really. I don't have pretty much anything else to say. Not really.